It's 6:40 in the morning outside a house you'd never look at twice. A vehicle is already running. A person in ordinary clothes is sitting inside it, doing nothing interesting but waiting. But by the time that vehicle moves, 3 other people have already been on the job for hours. Someone was servicing the vehicle to make sure gas was topped off, emergency supplies, restocked, and generally sweeping the vehicle to make sure there hasn't been any tampering. Someone else is sitting in a room tens or hundreds of miles away watching the cameras on that house and monitoring risk events for the area and for the rest of the journey, and has been all night. Someone else is already standing inside a building downtown that the person in the house won't reach for another 40 minutes, and in all of their radio traffic, all of their messages, all of their paperwork, that person in the house is never called by their name, not once. This is executive protection, not the movie version, and by the end of this video, I'll tell you the one thing that ends an EP career faster than anything else. It isn't losing a fight, and most people never see it coming. Route 3 on the security career mountain, executive protection. We'll cover who actually gets protected and why it's a business decision, not a perk. Some of the lingo the industry speaks. The teams, close protection officers, and residential security. The GSOC seat that supports the whole thing from behind a screen, and is the most realistic way in for most of you watching, how to build toward this career without a military or police background. And what happens at the very top when a principal takes their program private. Let's climb. Let's kill the biggest misconception first. At a Fortune 500 company with 200,000 employees, the number of people with full-time executive protection is often 1. Maybe 2 or 3, that's it. And here's the part that surprises people. It's frequently not the executive's choice. It's mandated by the business. The board or the company decides that this person receives protection, sometimes whether they want it or not. Why? Because a CEO isn't just a person. They're a single point of failure for the company's stock price, its strategy, and its public identity. Protection is a risk management decision made about an asset, formalized in board minutes, and reviewed like any other business control. That's also why programs are built on documented threat assessments rather than vibes. The company has to justify the spend and the intrusion. So what about everyone else in the C-suite? That's where leadership support services come in. Protection that's temporary and triggered rather than permanent. A specific threat comes in against a specific executive. A layoff announcement raises tension. A product controversy puts a name in the news. The company spins up coverage for days or weeks. Someone at the residence, someone on the travel. And then it stands down when the threat picture settles. Career takeaway. The permanent details are a tiny number of seats, but the temporary work, surge coverage, event coverage, travel support is a much bigger pool, and it's where people build the hours that qualify them for the permanent seats. Now for some vocabulary before we progress further. The person being protected is the principal, never the client in the field, never the boss, and critically, usually not their actual name. Details assign a code name and everyone uses it, on the radio, in the itinerary, in the group chat, on the phone. Why does that matter so much? Think about how many people brush against a protection operation. Drivers, hotel staff, venue coordinators, caterers, other companies' security teams. Any one of them can overhear a radio call or glance at a printed schedule. If the traffic says the principal lands at 4:15, that's meaningless to a stranger. If it says the CEO's name and their arrival time, you've just handed out targeting information for free. The code name isn't theater. It's the cheapest security control in the whole program. A few more terms you'll hear. The detail is the team assigned to a principal. Advance is the work done ahead of a movement. Walking the venue, timing routes, finding the medical facility nearest to wherever the principal will be. And a movement is any time the principal goes from one place to another, which is exactly when a protection program is most exposed and most busy. 2 teams do most of the physical work. Close protection officers, CPOs, are the ones with the principal. And I said it back in the map video, but it bears repeating. The job is overwhelmingly logistics, not combat, advance work, route planning, timing, coordinating with venues, knowing where the exits and the hospitals are, and keeping the principal's day running smoothly enough that nothing interesting ever happens. A good day in EP is a boring day, on purpose. Residential security teams, RST, cover the other half of a principal's life, the home. Static posts or patrols at the residence, controlling who comes and goes, managing deliveries and contractors, watching the perimeter overnight, coordinating with other staff that support the home and the principal's family. It's the least glamorous corner of EP and the one that quietly protects another dimension of vulnerability, and these two teams don't operate on separate islands. The CPO handing off at the residence needs the RST to know the vehicle is inbound. The RST that sees a stranger photographing the driveway needs that information to reach the detail before the next movement, which raises the obvious question, who is connecting them? Here's where this video gets useful for you specifically, because the person tying those teams together usually isn't standing outside in the cold. They're sitting in a room, in front of screens, and their job title says GSOC. If you watch the GSOC video, you know that room handles everything, everywhere, all at once. Alarms, weather, travel, incidents. Now imagine trying to track a principal's movements in real time while a warehouse alarm is screaming in another state. You can't. So mature programs build a dedicated EP seat, sometimes a whole EP-focused desk inside the GSOC. That seat's entire job is executive protection support, and it is deliberately walled off from the general incident queue. When the pipe bursts in Ohio, the rest of the room handles it. The EP seat doesn't move. That isolation isn't a luxury, it's the design. Protection support degrades the moment attention is split. So, what does that seat actually do? It watches the residents, cameras and access control alarms at the principal's home overnight and around the clock. A gate opened at 3 a.m., a perimeter camera triggered, an alarm at a secondary property. That's this seat. It stays in direct contact with the CPOs, tracking movements through the day. Departed the residence, arrived at the office, departing for the airport. The seat maintains the picture so that at any given moment, someone knows where the principal is and what's next. It runs look-ahead risk work on locations, the office, the residence, the venue tonight, the hotel next week, the city on the itinerary, protests near the route, weather, local unrest, anything that turns a routine movement into a problem. It informs the intel team of suspicious persons that make a scene outside the residence, especially if they are a known threat on a BOLO, be on the lookout list. It's the bridge between the close protection team and the residential team, between EP and the rest of corporate security, between the detail and intelligence analysts when a threat surfaces. Here's why I'm spending time on this. Everyone who wants into EP pictures themselves in the SUV, but the seat with the clearest hiring pipeline, the most predictable schedule, and the deepest view of how a program actually runs is the one in the room. 2 years in an EP seat teaches you the anatomy of a protection program, and the detail knows your name long before a job post. But what if you do want to become an agent? What can you do to get there? You might start with the unglamorous thing and get into a GSOC, working your way into an EP seat to learn the program from the inside. You'll get to network with the agents as a bonus, as referrals in that line of work can go a long way. From there, you will definitely need to collect certifications or pivot completely for specialized experience. For instance, go medical. EP teams love people who can handle a real medical emergency, because the most likely bad day isn't an attack. It's a cardiac event, an allergic reaction, an accident. Get certified. EMT is gold. A serious field medicine course is a strong start. Take a real EP certification course, but also know that some firms hire and then train you before assigning you to a client, which is a genuine door for people coming from guard work. To supplement this, search for protective driving courses that will teach you vehicle handling and route discipline, which is a huge share of the actual risk in this job. If you are alright with a bit of a longer journey, becoming a police officer or level 1 reserve officer could be a great experience. While it's not necessary, it will still read well on a resume and give more credibility to skill sets often desired in this line of work. Some of you might wonder, what about anything to do with firearms? Generally, it's probably helpful to have a concealed carry weapons permit and be well trained in firearm discipline and marksmanship. The caveat here is that you learn to use these skills as a last resort with flawless judgment. Most corporate executive protection teams will not allow in-house agents to carry, because that's a liability they want to avoid. However, private in-house teams definitely operate with less limitations. Students, this is a career where a criminal justice degree matters less than a clean record, a real skill, and the ability to keep your mouth shut. Veterans, your fieldcraft, advanced planning, and comms discipline transfer almost directly, but understand that the corporate version optimizes for invisibility, not presence. The instinct to look formidable is the wrong instinct here. One more thing almost nobody explains, and it's what happens at the very top. When a principal gets high profile enough, a founder, a public figure, someone whose wealth outgrows their employer, the protection program often moves out of the company and into the principal's own entity, a family office or a personal LLC. Why? Control and separation. A corporate program answers to the company, its policies, its budget, its records, its lawyers, its HR. But a principal's life includes things they don't want inside a corporate system: family members, private residences, personal travel, household staff, medical details, matters that have nothing to do with the business. Moving the program into a private entity gives the principal direct authority over hiring, standards, and how far the coverage extends, and it keeps the most personal information out of a corporate security team's files. For your career, this is the top of Route 3. These roles pay the best, demand the most discretion, and are almost never publicly posted. They're filled through reputation and referral, which is a hint about what actually matters in this field, and it brings us to the promise from the top of this video. The one thing that ends an EP career faster than anything else: a leak. Not a fight, not a failed physical test, a photo posted from the principal's driveway, a LinkedIn profile that names who you protect, a story told at a bar with just enough detail, a schedule left visible on a screen. In this profession, the information is the vulnerability, and the person entrusted with the principal's daily pattern is also the biggest potential source of it. That's why we use code names. That's why programs go private, and that's why discretion is the trait every EP hiring manager screens for before they ever look at your skills. They will look you up. If your social media is full of tactical photos and stories about who you've worked for, they've already learned everything they need to know about you, and it isn't good. So the practical homework: clean up your public footprint now. Never name a principal, past or present. Learn to answer "who do you work for?" with something boring and true. Sign the NDA and mean it. Being trusted with a secret is the entire product you're selling. And unlike a certification, you can start building that reputation today at whatever job you're in right now. That's executive protection. A tiny number of protected principals, a business decision made in a boardroom, teams that measure success in boring days, and a seat in the GSOC that most people never think to apply for. I'm the Security Sherpa, and this channel hands you the map nobody handed me, one route at a time. Drop a comment. Which route gets mapped next? And if you've worked to detail, without naming anybody, obviously, tell me the most surprising part of the job. See you at the next camp.